373 Yada Yahowah, Adam, the story of man. 9. Zayth Aleh, olive branch. New beginnings. In a previous chapter, we discovered that God revealed the location of the Garden of Eden. He wanted us to know where it was located so that we would understand the story of the flood and find confirmation of his word in archaeology. Civilization began between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, Eden's most notable waterways. The city-states and civilizations found along its shore, and those of the Black and Caspian seas, including Nineveh, Assyria, Babylon, and Sumer, represent man's earliest cultures, a caustic blend of superstition and conspiracy, religion and politics, militancy and slavery. Recorded human history begins shortly after the flood ends, around 2500 BCE. It is not a coincidence. While we have covered this material before, it is especially significant now, as it identifies the region which was deluged. A glistening river, yownah, flowed through and departed, yetser, from, min, Eden, the delightful place of great joy, Eden, to refresh, la shaka, the sheltered garden, eth-hagan. And from, min, there, sham, it separated, parad, and became, wahaya, for, la arbor, headwater sources, rosh. Basith 2:10. The name, Shem, of the first, Echad, is the Pishon. It winds its way, Hu-ha-sabab, throughout all of, Eth-Shurl, the region, Ares of Choila, Ha-374 Choila, where relationally there is, Shamasha, gold, Ha-Zahab. Basith 2:11. And the gold, Wala-Zahab, of that region, Ares Ha-Hai, the bdellium resin, Badalak, and precious stones, Wa-Eben Ha-Shoham, there, Sham, are valuable, pleasing, and beautiful, Tob. Basith 2:12. The name, Wa-Shem, of the second, Ha-Sheni, river, Nahar, is the Jichown. It, Hu, winds its way through, Ha-Sabab, the whole, Eth-Shurl, land, Ares, of Cush. Basith 2:13. The name, Wa-Shem, of the third, Ha-Shalishi, river, Nahar, is the Tigris, Shidakal. It travels, Hu-ha-Holok, east, Kema, of Ashur, and, Wa, the fourth, Ha-Rabbi, river, Ha-Nahar, is the Euphrates, Uparath. Basith, Genesis 2:14. Both tributaries of the Euphrates and Tigris, the headwaters of the Gihon, Aras and Kizilirmak, Red River, Phasianus, Pishon emerge within 100 miles of each other, all around Lake Van. It lies 200 miles south of the easternmost shore of the Black Sea and due west of the Caspian. That is important because mankind's oldest civilizations are buried beneath the shores of the Black Sea. Archaeologists are beginning to discover that humankind first mixed religion and politics in this environment. To this end, Robert Ballard of Titanic fame, on September 7, 2001, led a research team which included Frederick Hebert, an archaeologist from the University of Pennsylvania, to the Black Sea. Their mission was to find and film the civilizations alleged to be buried beneath her shores. 500 feet below the surface, and 12 miles off the current Turkish coast, a multitude of artifacts were found including collapsed structures, tools, and carved beams. They were very well preserved in the cold, 375 dark, and deep water. The scientific team identified these as evidence of an antediluvian, pre-flood, civilization. Along this ancient coastline, Ballard found two types of shells. One group was an extinct freshwater mollusk dating back 7,000 years. The other was a saltwater species which emerged circa 4000 BCE. In their words, there was a sudden and dramatic shift from a freshwater lake to a saltwater sea that was the result of a flood. A vast amount of land which was inhabited, was submerged. Delcho Solikov, a member of the Ballard team from the Bulgarian Oceanographic Institute, confirmed organic sediment from the ecological catastrophe has been found which dates back to the time of the flood attributed by the Bible. He added, the world's oldest tombs, dating back to 4000 to 4500 BCE, are found here, and these 294 tombs contain over 3000 gold objects, among them many religious icons. Some of these are on display in the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, Russia. They depict the same sun god images including Taurus the bull and circular halos that were ultimately manifest in the Babylonian religion, and those it influenced. The Black Sea is the world's largest inland body of water, encompassing 168,496 square miles. When it was 500 feet shallower, it was fresh, albeit landlocked. Today, at the vastly higher mean water level, it flows out of a narrow channel through the Bosporus Strait to the Aegean Sea. The Black Sea is comprised of a single basin, or bowl, which lies 6,000 to 7,250 feet below sea level. Central and Eastern Europe, much of Russia, as well as large areas of Turkey drain into what is the largest inland water receptacle in the world. The neighboring Caspian Sea is the world's largest inland body of water without an outlet. It runs 750 miles north to south and 250 miles laterally southeast of the area 376 we are discussing. Its surface is 92 feet below sea level, and its depth plunge 690 feet lower. This 143,244 square miles saltwater ocean is bordered by the Elburz and Caucasus Mountains. After examining the evidence from the Torah and science, then putting the pieces together, it is clear that Yahowah triggered the flood with an asteroid strike. The impact caused catastrophic flooding with monstrous tsunami waves roaring up the mouths of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, eventually reaching their headwaters near Lake Van. It would have washed away everything in its wake. The impact could well have loosened underground cisterns of water, exacerbating the problem. The heat generated from the initial blast would have melted mountainous ice packs in the region and generated massive mudflows. As a direct result of water and debris being hurled into the atmosphere, these catastrophic events would have been followed by torrential rains, not just in the area but around the globe. Eventually, the rain would turn to snow, especially in the higher elevations, due to the occlusion of the atmosphere. Every place on Earth would have been deluged, to one extent or another. Therefore, I think that the flood was a global event which was focused on the region surrounding Lake Van, the Black Sea, and the land along the shores of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. At its epicenter, the flood waters may have reached a depth of 4,000 cubits, 6,666 feet. Anywhere near the center of this enormous basin, with a radius of 250 miles, no one aboard a ship floating therein would have been able to see land in any direction, especially considering the elevated humidity. And no non-migratory bird, like a raven or a dove, would have been able to reach any of the surrounding snow-covered peaks and return. That said, I have no way of knowing if the volcanic ranges, as they appeared at the time, would have retained 377 this depth of water, or if Yahowah performed a miracle akin to parting the Red Sea's Gulf of Aqaba during the Exodus. While the underwater land bridge at the Israelites' most likely crossing site only requires holding back 1,000-foot deep walls of water for 20 miles, the gulf plummets to 5,000 feet deep on either side. So, since the Exodus was similar to the deluge in that one group of people was saved while another was drowned, and since it was miraculously performed, there is no reason to rule out godly intervention with regard to water management in Noach's case. Moving outward from the Black and Caspian Seas, the damage in this larger basin would have been considerable, albeit diminished. The waters may have risen by as much as 1,000 feet and may have retained that level for months. The heavy and continuous downpour triggered by the asteroid strike would have made this possible, especially since these massive basins serve as the watersheds for much of Europe and Russia. The whole Middle Eastern basin would have been influenced by this event, both coming and going. Mesopotamia was the first land mass submerged by the 1,000-foot-high walls of water emanating from the asteroid's plunge into the sea. And with the Tigris and Euphrates providing drainage for the epicenter of the flood, the consequence of this cataclysmic event would have been felt for several months throughout this region. But the waters would not have been as deep or endured as long. While the world's climate would have been altered after an asteroid strike of this magnitude and velocity, it is hard to quantify the amount of additional rain which would have fallen, but the rains would have been torrential. Therefore, we know with absolute certainty that a flood of Torah proportions occurred where and when God said it did. There were early civilizations exactly 378 where he said they would be, and the topography uniquely facilitated the event Yahowah described. The evidence, both scientific and archaeological, is in complete accord because Yahowah was telling the truth. There are a few loose ends I would like to tie up before we leave the deluge and move on to the story of Abraham and the formalization of the covenant. In Bereshith, Genesis 8:1, we read, God, Wa Elohim, the Almighty, remembered and proclaimed the truth about Zarkah, recalled and spoke about these events pertaining to Noach, the trustworthy guide and reliable leader who directs us to a safe and peaceful place, from Naka, to lead and guide creating an opportunity for a more favorable state which is reliable and can be trusted, and Nuvak, to provide a place for the spirit to settle down, rest, abide, and remain, along with all of the life forms, Wa'eth Shel HaChair, and also every living creature, from Che, to live and be alive, including all the animals, Wa'eth Shel Behema, beasts, wild animals, or livestock which were with him, Asher Ethu, in the ark, Bahar Tebel, within and aboard the protective vessel. So then, God, Elohim, the Almighty, caused the Spirit, Ruach, to pass over, Obar Al, to cross from one side to the other, hyphal imperfect, making God the one who was extending his spirit and continuously directing the outcome, the region, ha-eres, the land and territory where people had lived, and the waters, wah-ha-maim, the various forms and sources of water, subsided and receded, shakik, diminished and abated. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:1. 379 simply stated, if we remember Yahowah, he will remember us. And considering who he is and who we are, that's a pretty good deal. Noach and his family had been passed over as a prophetic example of what would happen in Egypt at the inception of the Exodus during the first Passover. The ark was a symbol of Yahowah's set-apart spirit, protecting Noach during the storm and extending his life. Searching for Noach's ark seems to be more captivating to people than considering Yahowah's word and finding the reason behind the story of the flood. The ark floated above a corrupt world to introduce us to the concept of the covenant. And yet ignorant of its purpose, countless people have mounted expeditions to Mount Ararat, and even more have scoffed at them. So that we do not leave this stone unturned, let's consider what Yahowah revealed. The waters withdrew and returned, wah-ha-maim shub, the various sources of water departed, going back to where they had come, kal imperfect, out of the region, minal ha-eres, from above and over the people and their cultures in the territory. Departing and traveling back, holak wa-shub, moving and returning, withdrawing on their journey, turning around and progressing, kal infinitive, the waters, ha-maim, receded, chaser, went down, decreasing and diminishing, kal imperfect, at the conclusion of, min kaseh, at the end, from the extreme limits, and from the point it was finished at, 150 days, chemisim wamia yam. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:3. It is so obvious that it is hard to fathom why no one has mentioned it. The verb shub means to return. Since the flood waters did not go back to the sky, it means that the principal source of the deluge was the place to which 380 they returned, the sea. The region was inundated with water as a consequence of an asteroid strike and resulting tsunami. The waters would eventually depart, traveling back from their furthest extent to the sea 150 days after the onslaught. As a result, the ark would go with the flow until its keel hit ground. The ark, wah-ha-teba, protective vessel, came to rest, nuvak, to the resting place, a word which likely served as the basis of Noach's name, in the 7th, Bar-ha-shabi, month, ha-hadesh, time of renewal, on the 17th day, Bar-ha-shabathimesar yaum, of the month, la-ha-hadesh, among, al, on, near, close to, before, toward, or in proximity to, the mountains, hari, hills and ridges, high country and elevated terrain, plural, of Ararat, Ararat, a kingdom, territory, and volcanic range, from Ara. The negation of a curse which invokes harm. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:4. God did not say that the ark was on Mount Ararat. Hari, in the plural, can mean high country and ridgelines, mountains and hills, but not mount. Further, al can mean near, before, close to, and toward just as easily as on. Having descended with the returning waters, the ark would have been pushed away from the high country and ridgelines. It is not only basic hydrodynamics, but this is also what Yahowah described. According to the Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew and English lexicon, and almost every other linguistic tool I consulted on the subject, analysis of cuneiform inscriptions reveal that Ararat in Assyrian is Oatu. It is a region in eastern Armenia between the Arashus River, Lake Van, and Lake Urmia. The Aras River travels along an arc 100 miles north of Lake Van, then turns southeast on the other side of what is called Mount 381 Ararat today. This place is the summit of the volcanic range less than 75 miles north by northeast of Lake Van. These mountains run north and south, above and perpendicular to the eastern Taurus Mountains, skirting the northernmost Iranian and southernmost Armenian borders with Turkey. There has been one credible account regarding the resting place of the ark. Ron Wyatt saw an aerial photograph from Turkish military files of a ship-shaped object in the mountains 20 miles south of Mount Ararat. Before he decided to investigate, he confirmed the location by building a three-dimensional model of the area in a large tub along with a replica ark. He watched as the waters retreated and noted that his replica flowed down and away from the highest peaks, placing it near the location in the aerial photograph. His story is detailed in the Discovery volume published by the Wyatt Archaeological Research and in a 2-hour video presentation, Discovered, Noah's Ark. I have read it, seen it, been to their museum in Tennessee, and interviewed Ron's widow, Mary Nell Wyatt. Now Ms. Lee after remarrying. The evidence Ron marshals is sufficient to confirm his findings to someone familiar with Yahowah's testimony due to the dimensions and location, but likely insufficient to prove it to a skeptic due to the condition of the remains and difficulty of traveling through the war-torn region of eastern Turkey. However, you can use the satellite view on Google Maps as I have done to see the splayed and fossilized remnant of the ark. It is in Turkey's Noah's Ark National Park, located 2,000 meters above mean sea level, less than 100 kilometers northeast of Lake Van along Turkish route E99. It is 30 kilometers south of Mount Ararat, 5,137 meters, 30 kilometers west of the Armenian border, and 20 kilometers north of Iran. The GPS coordinates are 392626N, 4414.5.3E. Also found and pictured were massive drogue stones, which were used to 382 create drag and keep the bow of a ship turned into the wind for stability. Before we leave this passage, however, know that the seventh month is the most important on Yahowah's calendar. It is home to 3 Mikra, invitations to be called out and meet, Teruah, trumpets, the first day of the seventh month, Yom Kippurim, day of reconciliations, the 10th day of the seventh month, and Sukkah, shelters, the 15th day of the seventh month. The 17th day of the seventh month would place it in the midst of Yahowah's final 8-day party of the year. This may be why in Bersith, Genesis 8:4, Noach and his family were shown camping out with God and celebrating his protection in harmony with the future Mikra. Based upon a lunar month of approximately 2,912 days, 70 days after the Sukkah, shelters celebration. The waters continued their journey, Wahamim Haya Holok, the various sources of water were on the move, and receded, Wachesa, diminished, went down, abated, and decreased, until, up to, providing extensive additional witness to the evidence into perpetuity, the 10th month, Ha-Hadesh Ha-Esiri. So on the first, Bar-Ekad, of the 10th, Bar-Ha-Esiri, month, Hadesh, time of renewing light on the moon's surface, the tops, Rosh, the uppermost heights and source, of the hills, Harim, mountain ridges and elevated terrain, became visible, Ra, were witnessed and able to be seen. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:5. That is to say, they were no longer concealed and blanketed in snow. Yahowah repeats things he wants us to understand and never forget. 40 is the time designated in the Torah as the completion of a period of testing. 383 and then, it came to pass, Haya, after, Min, the completion, K's, the duration, end, and finish, the destination and limit, of 40, Arbaim, that which makes square, days, Yaum, Noach, the trustworthy guide and reliable leader who directs us to a safe and peaceful place, from Naka, to lead and guide, creating an opportunity for a more favorable state which is reliable and can be trusted, and Nuvak, to provide a place for the spirit to settle down, rest, abide, and remain, opened, Patak, reached out and responded, freeing, a window, Eth Chalon, a portal for light, of the ark, Ha-Tebel, protective vessel, which, to get the most out of this beneficial relationship and journey through life, Asher, he had acted to fashion and form, Asar, he had prepared and engaged to make happen. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:6. With Yahowah, we always have access to the light, a portal to see God, and a window of opportunity. And we can measure time in periods of 40 as we count the years from the garden back to the garden. Specifically, there will have been 2 sets of 40 Yabel years from 3968 BC to 33 CE, each marking monumental events in our return. That is, so long as we do as Noach had done, and engage, opening the window to the heavens. Ravens are smart, but that only gets a person so far, and often into trouble. And they are as black ever gets. They are also mean. Therefore, the moral of this story is that not every approach to God works. And he sent out, Shalak, he dispatched and sent away, a raven, Eth-Ha-Arab, a corvid, a black and unclean winged creature, from Arab, to grow dark and live without the light, to be an Arab making pledges and vows as a result of mixing together and commingling the ideas of others, and to swarm in as an adversary and foe. It went about leaving the area, yetser, left and carried on, spreading out broadly while expressing its 384 frustration, and then turned around and came back, Washu, changed direction and returned, until, the waters, Harmaim, were dried up, Yabish, were gone, from the area, Minal Ha-Eres, away from and above the region where people established their cultures and communities. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:7. Neither the Ark, Covenant, Torah, or Yahowah would be served by a black bird. The raven was clever, but useless, not unlike the men who had once lived here. In the 8th verse, the universal symbol for Yahowah's spirit is revealed. Then, he sent forth, Shalak, he dispatched and sent out, a dove, yownah, one who sparkles with passion and enthusiasm, from Yain, to be effervescent and eager, living life with vitality and gusto, while also enjoying a sip of wine during a feast, an acceptable and clean bird, also the name of the prophet whose journey symbolized the purpose and nature of the ark, covenant and spirit, from him, Minethu, to see, La Ra, to witness and perceive, if, the waters, Harmaim, had receded and become of little concern, Kalel, grown smaller, losing elevation, while becoming less significant, from upon, Mininal, the surface of the ground, Panahar Adama, from appearing on the soil. Bersith 8-8. However, Wah, the dove, yownah, the one who sparkles with passion and enthusiasm, did not find, lo matzah, did not learn about nor discover, a resting place, Menovak, a home and abode for recuperation, for the soles of her feet, la kaf regal high, concerning the approach of an open hand or her foot, and so she returned, Washu, came back, to him and to the ark, el-hu el-ha-tebel, because the waters were still on the face, ky mal-pana, of the entire region, shurl ha-eres. 385 And so, Wah, he reached out his hand, shalak yodhu, he extended his hand, and grasped hold of her, walakak high, and brought her, waboeth high, into the ark with him, el-hu el-ha-teba. Bersith 8-9. Then, Wah, he waited another, yakal ode, he extended the time in expectation of a resolution, 7 days more, Shebath Yam Acre, and again, Wah Yazef he sent forth, Shalak, he dispatched and sent out, the dove, Eth yownah, one who sparkles with passion and enthusiasm, who is effervescent and eager, living life with vitality and gusto, from the ark, Minha Tebel. Bersith 8-10. And, Wah, so, the dove, yownah, the one who sparkles with passion and enthusiasm, from Yain, to be effervescent and eager, living life with vitality and gusto, as well as to enjoy a sip of wine during a feast, an acceptable and clean bird, also the name of the prophet whose journey symbolized the purpose and nature of the ark, covenant, and spirit, came to him, though El-Hu, came back to him, around dusk, La Eth Ereb, during the approach of evening, near sundown, and before the darkness, and behold, noting. Wahine, please look up and pay close attention to, the freshly picked, taraf, a recently plucked, olive branch with a leaf, Zayth Aleh, foliage from an olive tree, including a leaf and a stem, from Alah, to ascend, rising up and an unused root for Zayth meaning to be brilliant and bright, in her mouth, Barpehai, within the orifice for breathing, communicating, and ingesting nourishment. And therefore, Wah, Noach, the trustworthy guide and reliable leader who directs us to a safe and peaceful place, knew, Yada, he became aware and acknowledged, he was shown and understood, and by being observant he acquired and became familiar with the information he needed to realize and comprehend something vitally important, Kal imperfect, he actually, 386 literally, and genuinely, in concert with the relationship, between him and the dove, became cognizant with unfolding consequences which led to continual understanding through ongoing observation, that, indeed, ky, truly and reliably, the waters, Harmain, the many sources and states of water, had receded and were no longer a concern, Kalel, had lost elevation while becoming less significant, throughout the region, Minal Ha-Eres, from upon the land. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:11. Let's address some of the symbolism associated with the dove. yownah describes the kind of life Yahowah would like us to live. The covenant's children ought to sparkle with passion and enthusiasm. As heirs of the universe, we should be effervescent and eager, living life with vitality and gusto. The raven represented the dark, albeit clever, demonic spirits which had led the men in this region astray. The dove is symbolic of the set-apart spirit of Yahowah. She was feminine, as is our spiritual mother. The reason that the dove was not initially successful was to demonstrate the value of perseverance. If we prevailed with our first attempt, there would be no challenges to overcome, no opportunity for growth, nor occasion to reveal our fortitude and character. For example, I have worked on this for so long and have learned so much. I am on my 8th edit of Yada Yahowah. I have recomposed every translation, and rewritten most of the commentary. It is exciting because the improvements demonstrate that I have grown in knowledge and understanding. But there is more. The dove explicitly returned to the ark to be with Noach, and Noach received her, reaching out his hand and grasping hold of her. It is exactly what Yahowah wants us to do with him, which is why he is 387 shown in his name reaching down and out to us and offering an open hand. Yahowah is also teaching us that his plan of reconciliation and redemption is not instantaneous, but instead plays out over the course of 7,000 years, represented in this case by the additional 7 days. Moreover, he too will return around dusk, just before the world turns hideously black. The Zayth Aleh, olive branch is also revealing in that the olive represents the spirit. She is a source of light, nourishment, healing, and longevity, as is the olive. The fruit's oil provided the purest form of light known in the ancient world. By its flame, dark places were brightened and people who read in its glow were enlightened. Olive oil was not only healthy, it was medicinal, healing those who were suffering. Dowd, with whom Yahowah will return, is represented by the Aleh branch, which enables us to ascend, rising up to God as we become Zayth, brilliant and bright. Even the pay mouth is a metaphor in that we breathe through it to live, and communicate with it to share God's word, in addition to ingesting the nourishment she provides using it. And speaking of such things, we have another affirmation that the entire world wasn't flooded. For an olive branch to be recently plucked, tender and fresh, there were trees above the floodwaters. An olive tree will not survive a month, much less a year, with wet feet. Moving on to the most empowering word in the Hebrew language, as a result of the dove, representing the spirit, Noach came to Yada, know that which he could not otherwise see. He Yada, became aware and acknowledged, was shown and understood what he needed to know. By being observant he acquired the information he wanted such that he could comprehend 388 something vitally important to his family's survival. Yada is used in the title of these books because we need to know to live. As is the case with the covenant, our journey with God is just beginning when his escort out of man's world concludes. What follows suggests that Yahowah is especially supportive of families. He continues to be interested in the well-being of animal life, and it appears that we will continue to be productive. Then God spoke to Noach to say, Wa Elohim debar el Noach la'amar, Bersith 8:15, come out, yetser, go out of the ark, min ha-teba, from the protective vessel, you and your woman, your sons and your sons' wives, otter wa isha otter wa ben otter wa isha ben otter with you, eth otter. Bersith 8:16. Bring out with you, yetser eth otter, every one of the living creatures, shurl ha-chair, which, beneficially, were with you, asher eth otter, so that they may be fruitful, wa para, so that they may be productive and flourish, and become numerous, wa rabah, rearing offspring and continuing on, increasing and multiplying, throughout the land, al-ha-eres. Bersith 8:17. And then, Noach, the trustworthy guide, went out, yetser, left, going forth to continue to be productive, his sons and his female companion, Ben-Hu wa Isha Hu, and his sons' women, wa Isha Ben-Hu, with him, Eth-Hu. Bersith 8:18. Every one of the life forms, shurl ha-chair, by their genus, Lamis Faka, according to their species, classification, and family categorization, came out of, yetser min, the ark, ha-teba, the protective vessel. Bersith 8:19. Then, Noach, the trustworthy guide and reliable leader who directs us to a safe and peaceful 389 place, built, Banah, constructed for the restoration of the family, and to continue to establish the family name, feminine of Ben, child, Kal imperfect, an altar, my speech, a place to question the who, what, where, when, and how of a sacrifice, from my, an interrogatory asking who, what, where, when, why, and how questions about Zabak, a sacrifice, to approach, La, to move toward and draw near. In reference to and concerning, Yahowah, God's name transliterated as guided by his Torah, instructions on his higher existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as Eloah, Almighty God. So he selected and accepted, Walakak, he obtained and grasped hold of, taking, some from each, min shurl, a part of every, of the clean, ha-tahawah, the unblemished and restoring, animals, ha-behema, both wild and domestic animals, often descriptive of herding animals such as sheep and other livestock, and some from each, min shurl, of the clean birds, oftahawah, and lifted them up, raising them, wa Allah ola, going up and ascending with them, at, bar, the altar, my speech, a place to question the who, what, where, when, and how of a sacrifice, from my, an interrogatory asking who, what, where, when, why, and how questions about Zabak, a sacrifice. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:20. The exodus from the ark was clearly a celebration of family and life. These are the two things God holds dearest. Next to life and family, Yahowah values freedom. He did not keep these men and women or the animals cooped up inside the ark any longer than was necessary to secure their safety and freedom. The door was open for all to live, reproduce, grow, and explore. Noach's first thought as he disembarked was to thank Yahowah, showing his appreciation for sparing his life, his sons' lives, his wife, and his sons' wives, in addition to the lives of all of the animals aboard the ark. In this regard, he 390 Banah, built something. He did not get down on his knees, did not pray, and did not worship God. He went to work, Banah, constructing something expressly designed to demonstrate the restoration of life, and the continuance of the family name. Banah is the feminine of Ben, son, and is thus inclusive of the sons and daughters of God. It serves as the basis of Baith, family, which in turn is the root of Berith, covenant. It was long after my first 7 iterations of Yada Yahowah when translating Yeshaya, Isaiah 9 that I discovered something truly remarkable linguistically. There are scores of essential Hebrew words comprised of an interrogatory, typically ma or my, and a verb, such as kara, to invite, shafot, to decide, or in this case zabak, to offer a sacrifice. In each case, the addition of the interrogatory encourages us to ponder the who, what, where, why, when, and how of the verb's action. Mikre, therefore, speaks of pondering the who, what, where, why, when, and how questions associated with Yahowah's 7 invitations to be called out and meet. Mishpat, as a compound of my and shafot, addresses the various means to exercise good judgment and make an informed decision regarding the means God uses to resolve disputes. Likewise, my speech is a place to question the who, what, where, why, when, and how of a sacrifice. It was introduced at this time so that we would contemplate how, when, where, and why, even how, Dowd became the sacrificial offering which enabled us safe passage from earth to heaven. The altar was built expressly to approach Yahowah, not the Lord, God, Jesus, Allah, Hashem, or Adonai. Allah, a verb, and Olah, a noun, are spelled identically in the text. Allah, the actionable root defining the noun, Olah, means to go up, to ascend, and 391 to rise. By extension it conveys to be lifted up, taken up, offered up, withdrawn and carried away. The letters reveal that we should see ourselves reaching up to grasp hold of the shepherd's staff which is being offered to lift us up and out of harm's way. As the ultimate shepherd, Yahowah wants his flock to view him in this way and then respond. The Olah vocalization is typically translated as a burnt offering because the fire which is deployed in the process of making a sacrifice causes the essence of it to rise up as smoke. However, there is no hint of zabak, sacrificial offering, or esh, fire in the word itself. And as we shall discover as we progress in our study, verbs define nouns in Hebrew. Therefore, Olah's definition must be consistent with Allah, to ascend. All we can say for certain is that Noach ascended with these animals and considered this offering as symbolic of him and his family being withdrawn from the flood and carried away from the mess men had made so as to be lifted up to God. Should Noach have prepared these animals so that his family and the other carnivores could be fed, they would have consumed the edible portions. Only that which could not be consumed by man or beast would have been burnt up within the fire that would have been kindled to cook the meat. The resulting smoke would have been seen as symbolically rising up to the heavens. The family would have gathered together around the warmth and light of the fire to share a nurturing meal while engaging in meaningful conversation. Further, should this have occurred, the lesson for us is that, to preserve life, a life has to be sacrificed. Men and women are imperfect. The consequence of, not punishment for, our propensity to be wrong is death leading to separation, which is the penalty. The remedy is singular, 392 reconciliation through redemption to be perfected. And this is what Father and Son made possible on Pesach and Matzah so that we could enjoy Bikurim, Shabuah, Towrah, Kippurim, and Sukkah. Then, Yahowah, the proper pronunciation of Yahowah, our Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his existence and our shalom, restoration, discerned and accepted the spiritual implications, Ruach, perceived and delighted in the personification of spiritual acceptance, first-person acknowledgement of the Ruach, spirit, associated with the pleasing aroma, Ethrich ha-nikovak, implied by the pleasant and soothing smell, from Ruach, spirit and Nuvak, to settle down, rest, and remain, and, Yahowah, written as directed by his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence, declared, promised and claimed, in his heart and based upon his judgment, in accord with his thinking and reasoning. Note, in ancient Hebrew the heart was the seat of judgment while the liver was seen as the source of emotion, beyond what would be expected and necessary. I will no longer enjoin my, lo yazafoph. I will never again increase nor subsequently without just cause associate my, contempt, kalal, disdain and lack of regard, for the earth, armor, because of, abur on account of, mankind, Adam, the descendants of Adam, the first man conceived in God's image, even though, the thoughts, inclinations, motivations, dispositions, intentions, and judgment, yetser, the reasoning and desires, the wishes and wants, the emotions and choices, from the way issues are framed. Including the justification for so many imaginary religious myths, of man, Adam, are bad, no good, and wrong, evil and harmful, errant, wicked, and improper, of no value, miserable, and 393 troubling, vicious, corrupting, and immoral, undesirable and displeasing, injurious and malignant, miserable, afflicting, and sad, from his very beginning, min norimhu, from his childhood and early life as a boy or girl, right from his start in his youth. Further, Wah, besides what would be expected and necessary, I will no longer have, lo Yazaphof, I will never again increase nor subsequently without just cause enjoin, physical contact, la naka, such a destructive blow, with every, shurl, with all, life form, che, living creature, as, kar asher, consistent with the way, I have done, asar, I have acted and engaged at this moment in time, kal perfect. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:21. Yahowah viewed what Noach had done to show his appreciation favorably. He Ruach, discerned and accepted the spiritual implications of Noach continuing to engage and build upon the relationship and his decision to lift up the birds as a symbol of his gratitude. There is every reason in this instance to see Ruach as the personification of spiritual acceptance, a first-person acknowledgement of the Ruach, spirit. And if the birds were being prepared such that they would nourish man and beast, God enjoyed the rich Har-Nikovak, pleasant and pleasing smell of the fire and of food roasting upon it as the life forms he had conceived and created sought to Nuvak, settle down and remain, even rest after their arduous journey. This reveals some useful insights into God's nature. When we engage and do as he instructed, and then actively demonstrate our appreciation for his guidance and support when things materialize as he promised, it pleases him. He recognizes and accepts the spiritual implications of this approach. 394 If the birds were simply lifted up such that they could fly away, Yahowah took this as a sign that Noach appreciated his freedom, too. And if they were prepared and cooked above a roaring fire, we discover that God does not mind killing if it is done humanely and serves a purpose. And that is especially true if it is part of a celebration of our life together, and thus in a manner consistent with the Mikra. And yet this is just the beginning of what has been revealed. This is a most extraordinary confession, something we very seldom see from God. He is struggling with the very same issue I have sought to resolve throughout these translations. We know that Yahowah cleansed the earth on behalf of Noach so that his relationship with mankind would endure. But what about the animals? Was man's toxic nature being scrubbed from the region so that they would no longer be viciously attacked or abused, or were they collateral damage? Since the words Yahowah selected allow for either interpretation, I chose to render them such that they reflect the nature and character of the God I have come to know. It is the God who made this confession. And should I have been wrong, if the preponderance of animals apart from man were wiped away within this region instead of being wiped clean, then the attitude which precipitated that response no longer exists and will never be seen or experienced again. The implications are intriguing. While it isn't my place to judge, and none among us would have done better, God appears to be saying that his approach may have been excessive, which may imply that it was, at least in part, born out of frustration. The world he had so meticulously conceived was being polluted by a creature he had created for the opposite purpose, to tend to his garden. Rather than celebrating life, man had become a vicious predator. Instead of meaningful conversation and an exciting 395 exploration, man was awash in a sea of lies and conquests. The part of himself he had given us, his neshama, conscience, was now a weapon. The hands he had fashioned to hold his own were grasping spears. Everything he had worked so hard to achieve, his hopes and aspirations for a family, was for naught. And truthfully, all he gained was time. By eliminating men and women with a neshama, conscience and starting again with one responsive man and his family, we would gain the 1,000 years we humans would need to find our way back to the garden. Therefore, in Yahowah's judgment, beyond what would be necessary and expected to facilitate his means for us to reconcile our relationship with him and return to Eden, the joyous place where we belong, he would never again enjoin his contempt for what men and women would collectively become, against any other life form or against the earth itself. That is not to say he will not continue to hold humanity accountable for our deadly deceptions, our covetous conquests, or our oppressive nature. He has and he will, but he will do so as I have rendered the account of the flood, to wipe away that which is harmful so that life may thrive. Yahowah's admission regarding man is polarizing. He says that we are contemptible, and that he has lost respect for us. That is a far cry from Judaism, where the Talmud states that yetser isn't a bad thing since it was created by God. And all things created by God are good. It is the antithesis of Christianity, where that religion's mythical God loves everyone except Jews, whom he despises. Let there be no doubt on the question, is man basically good or evil? God answered it unambiguously and unequivocally. Indeed, truthfully and reliably, the thoughts, inclinations, motivations, dispositions, intentions, and judgment, yetser, the reasoning and 396 desires, the wishes and wants, the emotions and choices, from the way issues are framed, including the justification for so many imaginary religious myths of man, Adam, are bad, no good, and wrong, evil and harmful, errant, wicked, and improper, of no value, miserable, and troubling, vicious, corrupting, and immoral, undesirable and displeasing. Injurious and malignant, miserable, afflicting, and sad, from his very beginning, min noraim hu, from his childhood and early life as a boy or girl, right from his youth. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:21. According to our Creator, to the smartest and most reasonable judge in the universe, we are rotten to the core. Collectively and individually, whether young or old, humanity is generally wrong about everything. Our thoughts, inclinations, motivations, dispositions, intentions, and judgment are errant and of no value, even troubling and disagreeable, vicious and corrupting. It has long been my conclusion, especially after having traveled the world, having studied religion and politics, and having considered the rise of civilizations and now nations, that men and women individually have the capacity for good or bad, and typically demonstrate both during their lives. However, that is not true of mankind collectively. There has never been a benevolent civilization, a nation that educates rather than indoctrinates its people, or an institution either based upon or committed to pursuing the truth. Collectively, man is deadly and oppressive. Our religions and political schemes have caused this to be so. This is not my opinion but, instead, an informed and reasoned conclusion proven correct based on Yahowah's admission. Should you disagree, should you prefer a religious, patriotic, humanistic, socialistic, or conspiratorial view to God's, take up your argument with him and see where it leads. 397 There are several possibilities regarding when our yetser lab, reasoning and desires, wishes and wants, emotions and choices, opinions and justifications go ra, bad. Minid noraim can mean from our childhood and youth to describe an indefinite time in life when we are a young boy or girl. It is early in life and thus essentially right from the beginning. And that being the case, is God then also admitting that humanity went bad right from the start? In Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, God is omnipresent, and thus micromanaging every eventuality. And while he was decidedly involved during the flood, that has not been the case for the past 5,000 years. He said, further, besides what would be expected and necessary, I will no longer have, lo yazaphof, I will never again increase nor subsequently without just cause enjoin, physical contact, la naka, with every, shurl, life form, che, living creature, as, kar asher, I have done, asar, I have acted and engaged at this moment in time, kal perfect. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 8:21. God was not saying that he created a flawed product. He is instead making us aware of the human tendency to use what he gave us poorly. Yahowah is telling us that the way we react, the way we think, is instinctively flawed, causing many, if not most, to be wrong. He is telling mankind that we are not using our neshama, conscience properly. As a result, the negative aspects of Ra, bad which developed outside of Eden have become pervasive, much more popular than good, truth, or God. Yahowah is warning you and me to be careful because our instinct, our method of reasoning, our emotions and our feelings, our cravings and imaginings, our opinions and beliefs, cannot be trusted, and more often than not, will lead us astray. 398 You may feel good calling Yahowah Lord. You may like the way Jesus Christ, Christian, Gospel, Bible, and Church roll off the tongue. You may enjoy Christmas, Halloween, and Easter. You may be able to justify ignorance of the 7 Mikrei and the Shabat. Or you may prefer obeying the 613 laws imposed by Maimonides, and afflicting yourself on Yom Kippur. But that does not make wrong, right. It does not make bad, good. If you want to be right, if you want to be good, if you want to know Yahowah, read his word and reflect on what he had to say. Come to understand the evidence by correctly framing the issue from Yahowah's perspective. You will not be popular, but you will be in great company. Yahowah's restored love affair with humankind had been restored. Now, pay attention to me, any hine, I will affirm and further establish, any cum, I myself, will take a stand to confirm and honor, my covenant, eth any, with my family-oriented relationship agreement, through you, otter, and with your offspring, otter, by way of what you sow, after you, a char atom, following you. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 9:9. Let's never lose sight of the realization that this is Yahowah's Berith, covenant. He is offering to include us in his family and share his home with us. And just as Noach listened to Yahowah and followed his instructions, we must do the same if we want to be included in the journey of a lifetime. We can look up toward the heavens as the sunlight returns after a rainy day and see God's promise emblazoned on the sky. So, I will confirm, establish and affirm, take a stand and then rise up to honor, my covenant, any, with my family-oriented relationship 399 agreement, with you, otter, through you, such that all humans with a propensity to preach, washel basar, every person with a popular message, are never cut off from the living, lo karat, cut down and banished, again, owed, by the inundation of floodwaters, min maim harmopul. Never again shall there be, while lo higher owed, an overwhelming deluge, mopul, flood, to wipe out the corruption, la shakath, on the earth, ha eres, through the land. Bersith, Genesis 9:11. In addition, God said, Elohim Amar, the Almighty promised, this is the sign, Joth oath, this is the signal and banner, of the covenant, Habarith, of the family-oriented relationship agreement, which, to show the way to the benefits of the relationship, Asher, to reveal the proper path to walk to get the most out of life, I am offering, any Nathan, I am giving and bestowing, for the purpose of understanding between me, Bay and any, for you to make the proper connections to comprehend, and between you, to make a genuine connection with you, Bay and Atom, so that you might more fully appreciate and comprehend, and between every soul, Bay and Shol Nepesh, who benefits from the relationship, Asher, with you, Eth Atom, for all future generations, La Dower Olam, dwelling places and families throughout time. Bersith, Genesis 9:12. I am offering, Nathan, I am giving and bestowing, my bow, a rainbow, Ethshith Eni, within the water vapor, Bar Anan, in the water suspended in the air, and it shall be, Wahaya, so it will exist as the sign, La oath, the standard, banner, ensign, and symbol, of the covenant, Berith, family relationship agreement, for you to better understand me by making this connection, Bay and Eni, and also with the land, Waha 400 eres, with the earth and material realm. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 9:13. There would be 7 colors in Yahweh's bow with red, orange, yellow, then blue, indigo, and violet on the perimeter and green, the color of growth, in the center. This same formula of 3 luminaries on either side of a center candle is reflected in his menorah. The most growth-enabling of the Mikrei, Shabawa, the promise of 7, is set between 3 spring and 3 fall feasts. There is much to consider in this sign, one posted in light and written upon the heavens. Even the spectrum in which these 7 colors emerge is comprised of 7 elements, gamma rays, X-rays, UV rays, light, infrared, microwaves, and radio waves. Noach's willingness to act upon Yahweh's instructions made it possible for the Almighty to convey the benefits of his covenant through this remarkable craftsman and mariner, crafting a rainbow of light and water. He has led us away from the darkness of man to the promised land. As a reflection of my love for Yahweh, his covenant, his invitations, and his people, here are some of my musings on rainbows. Red, Pesach, Passover, life. 4. Adam, people. Pair, splendor. Pa, to endow with honor. Pagash, to approach and meet. Pordor, to redeem and ransom. Pidyam, redemption and freedom. Pei, mouth for verbal communication. Povak, to speak. 401 Puk, to be given what is required. Pura, winepress. Pazaz, to refine. Pala, marvelous and wonderful. Palat, to be rescued and saved. Palal, to intervene and provide justification. Palas, to observe and contemplate. Panna, to appear and be present. Pol, to act and engage, doing what is required. Paam, to bestow and endow. Patsa, to open. Petak, a doorway which is revealed. Pothar, to interpret the significance of words. Pakad, to recount and record, being accountable. Para, to become productive. Orange, matzah, unyeasted bread, perfection. 4. Yisrael, to engage and endure. Mikra, an invitation to be called out and meet. Mitzvah, instructive conditions. Mishpat, exercising good judgment to resolve disputes. Mifthan, threshold. Maftich, the key which unlocks and opens. Mabo, entrance. Mafi, restoration of health and well-being. Marshal, effective and memorable words. Manorah, Yaz, 7 light lamp. Moria, to revere Yer. 402 Mare, to see clearly. Male, to fulfill. Matzah, to discover and obtain. Matat, the gift of the relationship. Matak, well-spoken words. Matan, a present freely offered. Matam, restored health. Meshik, inheritance. Mishen, provisions to support life. Mishi, cleansing. Mishal, narrow path. Malath, to save. Mishneh, second in a series of events. Mishmarith, taking responsibility. Mishkan, tabernacle. Mashyor, anointed Messiah. Melech, royal rule and free advice. Malach, spiritual messenger and heavenly implement. Miria, companion and friend. Magol, direction in life. Malal, to be circumcised. Massa, journey. Man, nourishing food provided by God. Maim, cleansing and living waters. Yellow, Bikurim, firstborn children, adoption. 4. Yownah, beloved. Zayth, family and home. Berith, covenant. 403 Ben, son. Bath, daughter. Baka, firstborn. Barak, to bless. Bin, making the connections to understand. Banar, building and restoring. Bara, creating. Bakosh, searching and seeking. Bar, with, near, and within. Babar, baby. Bo, to arrive. Bacha, the chosen one. Bachan, to test, probe, and examine. Basha, to choose. Baitach, to have confidence to the point of reliance. Green, Shabawa, promise of 7, growing. 4. The Berith, covenant. Shama, listening and hearing. Shema, observing, examining, and considering. Shafot, to decide, exercising good judgment. Shaba, 7 and promise. Sard, witnessing. Shibur, sworn oath. Suv, growing. Shaha, earnestly seeking. Shem, the name. Shabak, glorified and exuberant. Saga, increasing and thriving. 404 Shofar, trumpeting a message. Shalom, satisfied and content, reconciled and restored. Sheman, olive oil. Shamaim, spiritual dwelling. Blue, Towrah, trumpets, knowing. 4. Zion, signs posted along the way. Torah, teaching and guidance. Zardak, to be right, and become vindicated. Zion, signs posted along the way. Ta, to explore and investigate. Tubuna, to understand. Towrah, written testimony. Tor, to sign the relationship agreement. Tashbloth, to provide guidance and direction. Takan, to be straightforward. Selam, in his image. Tuknith, becoming an example of the plan. Tamim, to become blameless and innocent. Tehillah, to express appreciation. Twah, to be harvested. Tashua, free from danger, delivered and saved. Takar, sounding a trumpet. Indigo, Kippurim, reconciliations, together. 4. Baith, family. Kaporith, to atone and be forgiven. Kofa, to ransom. 405 Kapha, to make amends, to pardon, and to forgive. Katab, to write, engrave, and inscribe. Kisel, to have confidence and trust. Kazaf, to deeply desire and yearn. Kathra, to crown and adorn. Kais, seat of honor. Karam, working in a vineyard. Kera, preparing a feast. Kerob, supernatural beings. Kerbel, to be clothed. Kaf, open and receptive hand. Kala, to completely fulfill. Kia, healing. Kabaz, cleansing and purifying. Ken, to be honest and right. Ky, indeed, truthfully, surely, and truly. Kun, to fashion, form, and establish. Coach, to be empowered. Carbout, to be respected, valued, and rewarded. Violet, Sukkah, camping out, sharing. 4. Yaakov, the chosen people. Samak, sustained and supported. Samar, joyful and rejoicing. Sakar, beneficially rewarded. Segab, strengthened and protected. Sekel, insightful understanding. Suz, pleased and delighted. Suvak, thinking rationally and clearly. 406 Saba, content and satisfied. Sath, raised, honored, and forgiven. Shabat, celebrating the 7th day. Shah, the remnant. Shub, have returned and are restored. Shaken, to dwell, live, remain, and endure. Shalem, to finish and completely satisfy. Shah, to play. And it was all for Adam, humankind. Ab, father. Ahab, love. Adam, mankind. Al, brilliant and bright. A man, trust and rely. Arkan, truly, and surely. Am, family. Asher, beneficial relationship. Ale, lamb. Akal, to consume and be nourished. Alaf, to learn and be increased 1,000-fold. Amana, binding written agreement. Arjan, to ponder, perceive, and respond. Abar, to be willing. Adam, red, first color of Yazbo. Odama, earth. Amar, to communicate. Ashar, to be guided. 407 Ezaph, to gather together. Otter, you. Ekad, 1, these also begin with an Aleph. Down, firm foundation, upright pillar, firm footing. L, Almighty God. M, Mother. Eres, land. Eth, with and alongside. Emun, to be trustworthy and reliable. Inaush, mortal man. That is a lot to reflect upon. But it is, after all, Yahweh's bow and the sign of his covenant, and he is the light, enlightening us through these words. Should you want to witness this in action, consider the Manora animation on the YadaYah.com homepage as it moves through the colors of the rainbow, the Mikre, and time. You'll find another, more explicit, variation of this in the Mikre animation on the resources page of YadaYah.com. Both are worth considering in light of what we have just read. One last thought before we leave Noach and consider Abraham. Noach, the trustworthy guide, began, Shaul, commenced and continued, as a man, Ish of the soil, Ha'adama. He planted, Nata, set up, constructed, and established a vineyard, Karem, cultivating vines and harvesting grapes. Bersith, in the beginning, Genesis 9:20. This is interesting for several reasons. First, Yahweh engages with people who work and who have meaningful 408 jobs. He does not associate with professional theologians. Noach worked the land. Moses was a shepherd, as was Dowd. Second, a couple of years ago the oldest confirmation of winemaking was traced to this region. An earthenware pot was discovered in Armenia containing primitive wine sediment dating back to the 6th millennium BCE. As is so often the case, an archaeologist's spade unearthed yet another confirmation of Torah. Lastly, the ark was not a journey to lethargy. Noach did not disembark and retire. The same is true in Eden, with the covenant, and life in heaven. To enjoy living, to be productive and interesting, to grow, we will continue to make our contribution to the relationship.